Hey everybody, I'm Joe Killinger. I'm a real estate investor and entrepreneur, and we put these videos together every week to give you all the tips and insights from my experience over the last several years. So make sure you tune in and subscribe, and thank you. All right everybody, we're opening back up around the country. Retail locations, a lot of them are sitting empty. How are we going to find and retain new retail tenants? For that, I asked George Pino from Commercial Brokers International to come in and walk us through the process that he has. I've got some ideas myself, and we're going to talk about it. So if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe at the end of the video and smash that like button. Okay, so we got a good one today. As the economy opens back up, we're seeing a lot of retail that's sitting vacant. So I asked George Pino of Commercial Brokers International in Los Angeles to come in and walk us through what he's seeing around California and around the nation. And so thank you for coming in, George.
Thanks for having me.
Kind of walk us through, just I guess you're being based in Los Angeles. Why don't you walk us through what you're seeing just in LA?
Okay. Well, within the Los Angeles marketplace itself, I mean, we're slowly starting. We're one of the last few areas in the United States to actually open up. And in fact, just last Friday, we got the authorization to start opening for indoor dining at lower capacity and whatnot. So, across the board, we've seen a lot of companies that have either gone dark or completely gone out of business. So there's a lot of vacancy that is out there. More importantly, there's a lot of availability, even more availability than vacancy. Even though the vacancy rate right now within the LA marketplace on the retail side is over 20%, when you look at the availability rate, it's actually well above 30%. So you start looking at some of those numbers and some of the factors there, then you have to start wondering, well, what do I do if I'm a landlord and owner of retail property?
Well, I guess that's what do. How do you go out and find tenants to bring in? I mean, what are you seeing that landlords you're working with or representing, what are they doing right now?
Well, a lot of this goes back to the real estate fundamentals, which I think some landlords, not a lot, but some landlords had gotten away from pre-COVID. Where they just were whoever's paying, blah, and this and that, as opposed to actually start looking at the actual retailers, who they are they going to be complementary to the other retailers in the area? Are they COVID resistant? Or is there a plan in place? Are they essential businesses? And then from there, first and foremost, I think number one step though is going to be, where am I priced? Because if you don't know where you're going to be priced at and where the market's really generating right now, then it doesn't matter who you attract or who you bring into if you're overpriced.
Right. Yeah, so you need to be market. And for that, if you're a newer landlord, you're going to want to find a really good broker that will market you out there, really push your location. They'll pick up the phone and make the calls and find these tenants for you. Not just put a sign on the side of your building. You see that a lot, and you want to make sure you've got somebody that's actually working for you.
Yeah. No, there's a couple of databases that are essential to our business, and especially on the retail side, that specifically tracks retail lease tenants that are expanding or looking to open within the area, both regional as well as national brands. So you want an agent that to expand on your point, that belongs to that, but it's going to actively make those calls and reach out to everybody saying, I got a great location and here's why. Specifically know who you're targeting and go after them. Like for instance, we were very successful in re-tenanting some of our retail locations that were QSR driven.
Right.
And we went out, even during COVID, there was quite a few operators that were looking to expand. We contacted all of them, even brought in national brands to write offers on some of the properties. So it's definitely key.
Well, what if I'm a landlord and I want to talk to an agent, what websites? There's CoStar?
CoStar, you want to make sure they belong to. Realty Lease Track.
Okay, lease tracks another.
And that's another one. AIR is getting up there, but Crexy as well. You know, although for the most part, when it comes to retail, ICSC as well, as far as the memberships and belonging to it, and being able to attract to some of the other retailers through there.
Okay. Don't you think that as a landlord now, and I want to go out and find a new retailer, I'm going to have to get pretty damn creative? Don't you think I need to be out there going, maybe my lease can be a little bit less for the first 16, 18, 24 months and then start coming up to help them get started? Is that something that is happening now?
Absolutely. And, you know, I like to look at it, you know, I'm a little bit of a history buff, but, you know, back in the day, when I first got into the business, it was not about the price, it was about the terms.
Right.
You know, then this was, not even going to go into how long ago that was, it was too long. But, you know, they always said it's not about,
contract
back then,
yeah.
exactly, it was a 4-page actually, I think.
Yeah.
But they said, you know, it's not really about the price if you can get the terms right. So a lot of this is really not going to necessarily be about what the asking rate is, as long as it's comparable to other markets, but rather the concession rates. What are the other landlords giving in concessions, which you know, you may not know, but a good broker is going to know, and also how to structure it. You know, there are definitely creative ways. We put together a proposal just recently where you know, a landlord, semi-institutional, is actually looking at percentage rent clauses for a newer company that's been extremely successful.
Okay,
So,
that makes sense.
you know, it makes sense. You have a natural break-even point, but the, you know, the newer company didn't want to necessarily pay the higher rents that they were looking for at this Class A asset. So, you know, we put together a proposal that was a
This
base
is an
rent,
office you're talking about.
actual retail location.
It was retail.
A retail restaurant location, percentage rent clause at 8% natural break-even point. You know, but that's something that I think if you're a landlord, you really need to know what the market is doing and what they're looking at. You know, there's some tenants don't like that either.
Well,
but
what do you say to the tenants? Is this, you know, and we're seeing it with some of the agents that are, the landlords are not budging on their lease price. They're like, up and down some of these really nice streets here in Los Angeles, they go, no, this is my price. How do you overcome that? I mean, it's really, that I don't understand that mentality, because they're afraid, I guess, their asset's going to go down in value, correct?
they're afraid the asset is going to go down in value, and from there, if you're coming from a tenant's perspective, you want to look to see what the motivation is of the landlord. So, you know, ultimately, if they could burn off concessions early and then in 2 years have a historical higher rental rate, it's going to help the value of the property. Additionally, everybody, you know, we're in some very unique times in that the economy itself has been affected, but by outside courses that we should be able to correct ourselves quicker than in past downturns and get back up and running. That's the whole idea. That's the thought process behind it. So if you're looking at it from a landlord perspective, the last thing the landlord wants to do now is make a decision based on today's rental rate, when a month from now it could be back to normal, or 2 months, or 3, or 6.
Or 24.
More like a year, but
could be a while.
But you never know with certain market conditions. So, you know, with that in mind, instead look for potential concessions where the first year is lower rent, and going from there.
Bump it up.
Exactly. Have higher rental increases on an annual basis, or percentage rent clauses. All kinds of things that you could do.
Yeah. And I made a few notes here, but you know, there's one landlord that I talked to. What they're doing is they have a parking lot in the back that's a car park, and so if you pull your ticket, it'll go. You can go into the retailer. You spend X amount of money in with the retailer. It's now free for parking. So it's driving people in. So it's saving money there. People in it are spending more money in with the retailer. So that landlord is working that way with their retail tenants. Are you hearing any more stories like that from your clients?
Well, not necessarily from my clients, but you know, City of Santa Monica, they did the exact same thing through the downtown business district. They stopped all parking fees.
Oh, they did.
So
to
drive people to go shopping, and they actually don't even require a validation from a store. But if you park in one of the downtown business districts, parking structures, or even some on the streets, the meters, it's free.
I didn't know that.
So Yeah,
Get stuck in
and
those
they started that around Christmas time to try and generate a little bit more revenue for the retailers that were open, but people weren't going down to. And, just that was a way that they can get the information out.
Sure.
So we see that. I haven't seen too many other retailers necessarily do that because a lot of times.
Parking's kind of limited here. He just happened to have a parking.
Right. Well, I was going to say also, a lot of times
Structure.
parking is not actually controlled by the landlord. They
Right.
actually lease that
Lease
out
it
to
out.
an operator, so they may not have that much.
Okay, so another thing you're going to want to do is ventilation. Make sure now, because with COVID, you got to make sure your ventilation is. What are the codes? Do you know what they are?
The new codes?
Yeah.
No, it's changing so dramatically.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone does.
Make sure your ventilation's good. Find ways to help your retailers. If they're going to need to have, we've all seen retail evolving today.
Yes.
Evolving. And so you got to figure out a way as a landlord to really help them do it. If part of it's going to be they're going to have curbside pickup, they're going to have stuff outside. They're retailers. You're probably more apt to have dealt with the city and pulling permits and that kind of stuff. Work with them on helping pull permits. Help your tenants out these days. The more help you can give them, the more chance they're going to want to work with you and stay longer and pay a solid rent and keep paying, even if there is another downturn.
Absolutely, and there's definitely ways that you can do that. Even to adapt. As the retail landscape and the business itself adapts, the landlords are going to have to adapt as well. So we've seen that a lot of retailers are keeping making their footprint a little bit smaller, but they're also having issues with last mile distribution. So an idea might be, let's cut back on some of your retail, keep it at the same rental rate, but then let's say the last back third of your building is going to be warehousing distribution, and it may be a little bit lower rental rate. So there's definitely different ways that a landlord can actually operate and work with current tenants that their current space may not fit the needs or the business model, but that they can actually grow with them.
Yeah, as I'm hearing you talk, it just seems like it's going to be more of a partnership with your properties.
Well, understanding the business.
Yeah, that retailer's business model.
Absolutely, and if anything, I think landlords and retailers, they've always had a partnership. They just don't like to call it that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, one success, they're very much co-aligned with each other.
Right. I do think you could go so far as with marketing. I think marketing. If you have, let's say, a strip center, you should help market that strip center. Really help build it out. Maybe create a Instagram page, Facebook page, and really push your retailers out at your properties. Maybe work with them on offering discounts on your page. Come up with a way to get very creative, and really helping your tenants out is something that I think is really going to help you grow your portfolio, help your tenants, and make them long-term tenants and make them stay with you. So I think that's probably the key. So really focus on building their business, because I think it'll help you build the value of your assets. So, anything else?
No, I think the main thing is understanding that, first of all, not every tenant needs help. Right. I can tell you that but almost understand that most tenants are probably going to ask for landlord's help right now.
Sure.
And don't take it personally, but at the same time, keep an open mind and see how it might work. Because with change and disruption, and what we're really looking at is disruption within the industry itself as it adapts to everything that's been going on with COVID, as well as the economy, and then with the new administration, as that adapt and there's some disruption, that's going to lead to opportunities. So the landlords that are open to those opportunities and adapting with the tenants are going to do the best.
Yeah, it is. I kind of think if you're a landlord and you have a business plan and you've got a retail tenant look at your property, show them the business plan, what you're going to work with them on, and put it in writing. Show them the business plan. Listen, this is what I'm willing to do for you. I think it can really help you out a lot. So. All right. Well, George, thank you for coming in today, and thank you for tuning in today. And if you haven't done so, please do subscribe, and we'll see you again next week.